Hey everybody, today we're doing another topic video. The topic this week was movies that you really loved when you were a kid and now you don't like them so much. They haven't quite held up. But before we do that, I will shamelessly plug my website as always. I have a website where I sell commissioned portraits and prints of my work. I am a starving artist. If you're interested in it, you can go to deepfocuslens.com and there's a link below. If you have any questions about a commission or a print, want to chat with me about ideas, I also have my email in the description box below. But yeah, in regards to the topic question itself, you guys had some fun answers, so we'll start with the first one. Jaws 3D. I can't even watch Jaws 2 because I know that it's coming next. Oh man, really? Like, Jaws 3D is wonderful. I genuinely like that film. I am one of those people that really doesn't mind the additional Jaws movies because they're just so ridiculous. They're so shameless that, you know, it just becomes a guilty pleasure. They are dated in all the right ways that just make it hilarious. And I think part of it, and it's weird because like normally when you have a movie that's, you know, like Jaws, the original Jaws, like that film to me is a masterpiece. I love it. I think it's one of Steven Spielberg's best films, and I think it's one of the best films of its type. It really did, and this is something that Spielberg succeeds at so well, you know, taking that B movie sort of thing, very like Creature from the Black Lagoon sort of setup, and then elevating it, turning it into really sophisticated storytelling with really compelling story and really compelling characters. And then the rest of them are just complete nonsense. It's complete schlock, and they get more and more so as it goes. Jaws 3D, like if you haven't seen that scene where the shark is coming towards the window and breaks the glass, oh man, look it up on YouTube right now. You are in for a treat. It's one of the great moments in all of film. I like Jaws the Revenge personally. I was watching a bit of it the other day and it was just masterful. If you just get drunk or stoned or whatever and just laugh a lot, it's great. That's the perfect atmosphere for it. Seeing a giant shark come towards Michael Caine and his reaction is, oh shit. I mean, I think it's perfect. So yeah, I think that there is a way to enjoy them as long as you don't take them too seriously, and they work in a nostalgic sort of way. Okay, Star Trek, the motion picture. I was such an incredible fan of the TV show to the point that Star Wars didn't hold all that much of charm for me. So the movie comes out when I'm 10 or something, and it was amazing for a childhood fan of those Star Trek reruns. A large budget for one thing. Suddenly it all looked great and real, not like TV anymore. My opinion now, though, slow. And I say that as a man in my 50s. Rather pretentious, certainly humorless, and the twist is cheesy. All in all, it was like 2001 without the brains. Oh my God. Thank you. You are so right. Everything you say here is so accurate. More than accurate. I have seen all the Star Trek films. I'm not proud of it. I know it sounded like the way I said it just now makes it sound like I'm proud of it. I am not. It was really tough to get through them, but I felt I needed to as a fan of the series. And Star Trek the Motion Picture is a weird conundrum because it's like, yeah, you'd think, you know, it's directed by Robert Wise and he's like going more for kind of a cerebral sci-fi sort of thing. You think that would be interesting. It has Jerry Goldsmith doing the score. It's expensive. The aesthetic is really interesting. I think the aesthetic for this film is maybe the best of any of the Star Trek films, just like the uniforms and the ship and everything. Yeah, it felt elevated, but yet there's nothing within the film that matches any of that aesthetic, that matches how expensive it is. It is, as you say, so slow. I am an insomniac. I have been my whole life. It's been difficult my whole life. I almost never fall asleep in movies. But this one, yeah, I think this might be the one that might get me to fall asleep. If you struggle at all with lack of sleep, this is the movie for you. It lacked a lot of what we loved in the original series in terms of the characters and such. And yeah, like again, it's just weird. It has a lot of things going for it, and yet ultimately it's really hollow. And it was just a real misfire by Robert Wise. But in terms of the way it's presented, I think it's the best of the Star Trek films for the original cast. Because, you know, you look at Wrath of Khan, though it's a way better movie, you know, it's not nearly as ambitious as this one. But yeah, I'm so glad to hear you say that because I couldn't agree more. American Beauty. I used to think it was so deep when I was a teen, but now I see it's pretentious. Sam Mendes is not a good director. Yeah, I mean, I also thought it was a masterpiece as a child, or I say child, I was like, you know, 16, whatever. But I think it is very 90s, you know, it's very much a 90s movie that like is like stuck in this kind of suburban sort of existential crisis, but it doesn't really have anything to offer that is interesting about that. There are many films that year, I think 1990, what was it, 1999, I think that were far more interesting and studying aspects of 1990s suburban society in a way that's far more interesting. But you know, I have strong opinions on American Beauty. That's another one where like, yeah, you know, I liked it as a kid. I grew up and I was like, oh my God, this is not what I remember. But, you know, I feel like I really went into it on my review. So, you know, I'll recommend watch the review if you really want all my opinions on it, because I feel like it's a little too much to go through here. Batman and Robin, 1997. I don't necessarily hate it, but it's funny to watch it as an adult and remember how much I loved it as a kid who was obsessed with Batman. Its campiness almost makes it a so bad it's good movie like The Room. Yeah, I mean, Batman and Robin is an obvious one. And I agree. It is one of those movies that, you know, it's the nostalgia of it that makes it, I guess, pleasing in a certain way as we get older. For me, I was always one of those people who knew, even as a kid, like I knew it was, you know, roll over the top and ridiculous and meant to be in that kind of Adam West cartoony sort of quality. But, you know, like as I get older, it gets funnier and funnier to me. Arnold Schwarzenegger is a revelation in that film. But I do understand the detractors because, you know, it is Joel Schumacher and he is, you know, like, you know, he's very kind of extravagant in terms of his sets, but they are excessively gaudy. And it feels kind of like a cheaper version of Baz Luhrmann. You know, and I'm not even particularly a fan of Baz Luhrmann either. I think to a degree the gaudiness kind of causes everything to sag, and the artificiality of everything causes it to kind of sag rather than being real kind of zippy and bright and fun. And again, cheeky in the way that Adam West cartoons were, where they had a lightness and a fun. This can feel a little bit soggy at times, and that is, I think, more kind of the aesthetic issue with it. But yeah, like anytime I think of a Baz Luhrmann film, they just look like coked up drag queens, just overall, you know. But again, it's more of a nostalgic thing. I loved it as a kid. I grew up watching it now, and I love it even more, again, because of how silly it is. It's more the schmaltzy movies that don't take themselves too seriously that are much easier to appreciate as an adult, I find. Star Wars, the first three. I don't really hate them, and they're not poorly done, but when the Ewoks came along, I got vaulted off the bandwagon so hard I've never wanted to get back on. I developed an aversion. Oh well, if the Ewoks hadn't done it, Jar Jar would have. Well, that's very true, your last sentence. So I'm guessing what you mean here is that you struggled with the Revenge of the Jedi, or Return of the Jedi. I'm sorry, I get them so confused at this point. And yeah, that is by far the weakest one of the original trilogy. I did sort of go back a few years ago and watch the original Star Wars trilogy on TV for Christmas, I think, and that one was a tough one to get through. The other ones, they hold up very well, I think. They're strong, they're ambitious, they have a lot of moments in them that are really spectacular, and this film just doesn't have a lot of that. It feels like a lot of the life got zapped out of it, and it does feel very dated. It feels very kind of a product of its era, very like 1980s. The Ewoks do have that sort of Muppet quality, but with a lot less charm and a lot less intelligence in the humor. And, you know, they're going for kind of like a Rick Baker sort of thing, but again, with a lot less joy to it. I do appreciate certain sequences in it. There are moments towards the end of the film that I think are quite powerful, and I think, you know, I really like the speeder chase on Endor, I think is good. But yeah, you know, it definitely is one that doesn't work so much, leaves a lot to be desired, and it does kind of tarnish a little bit that original trilogy as you get older. I enjoyed The King's Speech when it came out, but now it comes off as everything that makes Academy Awards shallow to me. Sad, because I still love Helena Bonham Carter. Yeah, I mean, but, you know, when The King's Speech came out, I knew that's how it was going to be viewed from years forward. Yeah, I mean, it is just a very safe, very Oscar-baity movie, the kind of thing that's like Tom Hooper can say he won an Oscar, he can put that next to his name for the rest of his life, whether he deserves it or whatever, that is up for debate. If anything, I feel like he's just proven how kind of lacking he is creatively, and just he does not have the visual eye, I think, to be a great director. He's just made some very, very bad choices, just especially aesthetically. It's not so bad with The King's Speech, but it does feel very much like it's trying to be very consciously arty for just the sake of being arty. There's a lot of you know, like wide angle shots and fisheye lenses and everything. And it's like, okay, but why is it doing that other than just to be kind of, again, consciously arty? And you know, it's got a great cast. You have, again, Helena Bonham Carter, you mentioned, she's very good in the film. So is Colin Firth, and I remember Jeffrey Rush being in it. They're all excellent, but this is typical we see in Hollywood. Actors are great. It's the writing that sucks, and the writing does not allow these actors to be showcased in the ways that I wish that they could be. But yeah, you know, it is like most Oscar movies, forgettable, very politically driven. You know, they appeal to a certain type of person for a specific award, and it feels more like it's a way to boost their resume rather than something they're really passionate about. Space Jam. I used to love it as a kid. I don't hate it nowadays, though, but I do think it's kind of a bad movie. Chuck Jones, who worked with the Looney Tunes characters for 30 years, hated it, though. But I am kind of curious about the sequel. Yeah, I mean, it is a bad movie. It is one of those movies that, like, for my generation, were very nostalgic when it comes to that. When I was a kid, I thought Space Jam was the greatest thing I had ever seen in my life. I was like 6 years old or 7, I don't remember, but it blew my mind. It was Michael Jordan and the Looney Tunes, you know, two things that were very popular at the time combined. Like, it was a kid's dream. But yes, it is pure product placement just served to us on a platter, and that's hard to deny. But it's the kind of product placement where, yes, it's bad, yes, it's very much pandering, but it's like watching old commercials. There's like a comfort to that. It's very much part of a zeitgeist. And there's something about that nostalgia aspect to it that is appealing to us. So yes, like I find that with Space Jam now, even though I recognize that it is not a good movie. And yeah, I am interested in the sequel. I'm interested because, you know, there's a lot of things surrounding it, but also just because LeBron James is in it. I'm sorry, he's a lot better in terms of how he is on camera than Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan is amazing, but he's very wooden in terms of his delivery. And LeBron's funny. He's proven that he's really great in front of the camera, that he can, you know, act to a degree. He can be charming, and it's much more effortless. So I think he's a better choice. So, you know, I would be kind of interested in it. But again, you know, not taking it seriously, very much understanding what it is. But yeah, so that is the video. Thank you guys so much for sending in your answers. I always enjoy hearing them. I'd like to say thank you so much to all of my Patreon supporters before we go. And if you are interested in becoming a patron, the link for that is below, as well as my social media information. You can watch more videos here, and you can subscribe if you'd like. Catch you next time.